Start. Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of the motion thanking the President for her address. My speech will cover a variety of topics organized into three main areas. First, I will speak about certain things that have changed in Singapore. Second, I will talk about things that must not change. And third, I will suggest that some things should change. First, let me speak about a few things that have changed in Singapore in the aftermath of the last elections. I will speak about the government's recognition of the office of the leader of the opposition, about how Workers' Party (WP) MPs will be organized in Parliament. And finally, I will share some thoughts on the presence of our parliamentary colleagues from the Progress Singapore Party. Immediately after the results of the general election were known, the Prime Minister (PM) announced the position of leader of the opposition (LO) and that this would come with support and resources. It would be an understatement to say that this announcement came as a surprise to the WP and to members of the public. My view is to take the appointment of the LO and the motives behind it positively. The PM has signaled a change in the narrative and culture of how politics and government is to be conducted, and I thank him for that. We look forward to a different tone of political engagement, and the WP accepts the change as another step towards a first world parliament. The appointment has already created expectations. The government, the WP, and the people of Singapore all believe that politics in Singapore is changing, and in some cases changing rapidly. My personal expectation is that my WP colleagues and I will have to work extra hard. We will have to ask ourselves tough questions before critiquing government policy, the chief of which is what would we do if we were in charge? Singapore in general would be unfamiliar with the concept of an opposition in parliament as an official part of our political system, let alone the office of the LO. In the past, popular reference to the opposition was almost always pejorative, usually centered around the points that the opposition was out of government, did not have a mandate, could only talk, and as such was ultimately irrelevant. There was a lacuna in appreciating the value of a parliamentary opposition as part of Singapore's parliamentary democracy. With the new changes, it needs to be clear what the opposition can and cannot do. The appointment of LO is an opportunity for citizens and indeed politicians to educate ourselves and understand better what exactly it is that the opposition does and what its purpose is. What does it mean to be a check and balance on the government, and how exactly can the opposition propose alternative policies? My assessment is that the public expects the WP and the opposition in general to play a constructive role in Singapore politics. It should advance the interests of all Singaporeans, whether they may be in the majority or minority on any particular issue, without fear or favor. The office of the LO goes a long way to institutionalizing an opposition in Parliament and in our political system. For opposition parties to make greater headway in Parliament, we have to understand that today's political context necessitates the development of a rational and responsible approach to opposition politics that places not just the Singapore citizen but Singapore at the core. Mr. Speaker, my WP colleagues and I will set our own standards and chart an independent course, just as my predecessors Mr. Low Thia Khiang did in the face of much resistance, including from many personalities in the opposition camp, as he sought to build a credible WP. The road ahead will not be easy, but anything worthwhile never is. We will do our best by Singapore and Singaporeans. But how much we can do and how much our political conversation evolves for the better will be driven by three things. One, by the quantity and quality of information that is shared by the government in Parliament and separately released to the public more generally. Two, by their sources given by the government to analyze and use that information for the benefit of the public, and three, by the willingness of the government to listen to and implement the alternative ideas suggested. As far as information is concerned, the opposition's output will depend very much on whether we can get the input we ask for. We intend to make targeted inquiries of government departments and public agencies, as such information is essential for crafting alternative policies. On its part, the government should consider how it can put out more information without being asked, particularly information and indicators benchmarked against other countries.